Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We're your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we've got some exciting tech news for you here at bedtime. Going back to our roots. And with that, we'll delve right into the all new controversial Rabbit R1. This is
Mhm.
something that we talked about when we discussed CES a couple months back. Product is finally here, and reviews of this have been a little interesting. Generally, from what I have seen, the consensus is this should have just been an app.
Mm.
And, um, with that, this has been kind of tough couple of months for AI startups. I mean, with Rabbit, that other AI pin that I can't even remember what the name of it is that people have said is the worst product ever. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, so interesting things for AI startups that are coming about. But delving into the Rabbit R1, um, a lot of the consensus has been that this should just be an app that lives on your phone. And there has been a report from Android Authority that um, some people have been able to reverse engineer this and put this on an unrooted um, Xiaomi 13T Pro phone and use it natively on the device. Um, and that goes along with a lot of what we talked about during our discussion with CES. Like this was going to be something really cool, but it seemed a little weird that it was on a standalone device and kind of counterintuitive that you would have to have this device in your pocket along with your phone, along with your watch and your headphones and everything else that we have to carry around now, or that we choose to carry, I guess. And so putting it on natively on your phone seems like a better solution to me. And I would have thought that that would have been a little bit more successful having that, because then it would have taken out the overhead costs of having to develop a device and um, keep supporting a device. But I wanted to get your opinions. What are your thoughts? Do you think this should be its own app or stay with a standalone device?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when we talked about this on the podcast last, we had Cam
Mhm.
on the podcast as well. So shout out to C Money, Cameron. Thanks for being a guest on the show. Um, he brought up a good point. I think initially I was really excited for this product because I thought it was really cool to be able to use AI very interactively with what's around you in your life. And I liked the idea where it was a dedicated device to just essentially being like your pocket Wikipedia, right?
Mhm.
And then also potentially being a personal assistant on a device. And Cam made the point, like, it's going to be a nuisance to have another thing that you're carrying. I mean, you brought that up just now. You mentioned that just now. And so the more I think about it, the more I lean into this idea of, yeah, why is it not just an app? But do maybe there are reasons for it not just being an app. Maybe there's certain levels of software that would overload an app, maybe I don't know, capacity wise, or whether it's like computer processing wise. I don't know. Um, I don't know if it's a hindsight that they missed or if they have their specific reasons for the development of the product. But if it's able to be reverse engineered and it's already been tested on a phone, I don't understand why that wasn't one of the ideas discussed in the initial product development. Um, maybe they thought like, oh, we get more money if it's hardware, but or here's the other thought that I had. Here's the other thought that I had. Maybe they're like, let's do this as like a V1, and then we make a phone version and we break into the mobile phone space. I don't know, but it just seems like now understanding the situation and the reverse engineer sounds like might have been easier just to make it an app
Yeah,
and for everyone.
yeah, I agree. You bring up
So
some good points. Like maybe they, this is a version one, and the next version will be just an app. Um, I think if they move into the app, they're going to have a lot more widespread adoption for this.
yeah.
Um, like I was initially going to go in for the pre-order, and then thinking about it, I was like, I really don't want to carry around another device or just have that device sit on my desk. And that's only when I use it. I have
Yeah.
enough, I have enough junk in my life that I don't need to add to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind. I think it's kind of cool that somebody was able to reverse engineer this and put it on a
Oh
phone,
yeah.
get that feature tested out. So um, maybe now we might get an official support for this on an app store, or maybe I'll just have to go buy a cheap Android so I could do that. But
Yeah, I think that's a really cool aspect. I mean, if someone has already proven that it can be done, I feel like that next step should be, okay, maybe we turn this into an app version and turn into like a subscription model similar to the other AI softwares out there.
yeah,
And I feel as though subscription model is just a better revenue model anyway. But
yeah, it's better for the business. I don't know that it's better for the consumer, but it's the
agreed. Yes,
day
agreed.
and age that we live now. Everything is a subscription.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Do you think that they will sustain their hardware aspect, or do you think they'll cave into consumers' perspective and push for app adoption or app development?
Not knowing much about the company and kind of like what their current culture is. Um, if it were me, I would give in to peer pressure, as it were, and just develop support for an app rather than doing hardware. And maybe that's just the lazy person in me,
Mhm.
because I mean that there's a lot of costs that go into developing your own hardware. I mean, you've got tooling costs and support for that. I mean, there's a lot more vertical integration, which makes things easier when you make your own hardware. But um, if if you're just gonna, it seems just going on the software side and leveraging the technology within people's phones that's already there seems like a win-win to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So I, I'm not sure, like I said, what their long-term plans are. So that may have an impact on whether they go the app route or if they keep maintaining hardware aspect. Um, well, I'm really curious to see how they react to their the consumer and community's uh, perspective and opinion on this because there are valid points here why it's not just an app. So
Yeah, very true. Well, maybe one of these days we'll be able to get our hands on it, and we'll do a review for you all. So stay tuned for that.
yeah.
All right, what do you have for us tonight?
All right. I am going to talk about Fisker again as a
Oh,
follow-up.
yes,
So
good old Fisk.
let's see here. Oh, you got it? Okay,
Yep, I
great.
got it for you.
All right, thank you. So last time we talked about different items in the news, we talked about Fisker and how they're slashing prices significantly because they weren't doing well, especially after a very popular YouTube's review. And there was a lot of heat and debate over Fisker's Ocean vehicle. And they're in the news again. And it seems like since last year, they've had a decent amount of lawsuits, many of which they've settled. They've had 30 lawsuits, but a big one is with this German engineering firm that Fisker had contracts and verbal agreements with to help engineer two of their other vehicles, Pear and Alaska. Alaska's like their truck, I guess. Um, and Fisker stopped paying them. And they stopped paying them, I think it was back in the fall or the late summer. Um, but the lawsuit is for $13 million in damages. And that's on top of 30 other lawsuits, like I said, many of which they've settled. Um, and some of those lawsuits are big. Like there's like a textile supplier who sued Fisker for more than 1 million. And so there's a decent amount of issues here that they're coming across. And Fisker's really saying there's no claim to this at all. Um, and to be fair, a lot of what the claims are from this German engineering firm, they don't have in like contract writing. So that's always difficult to back up. But it's very interesting to see what's happening here. And then also they had some issues with a an internal engineer employee um, that in March an employee who worked for Fisker filed a class action complaint um, for employees working overtime and not getting paid. So they have that as an issue as well. And then many states in the United States have like lemon laws, and there's a lot of litigation around them not. I don't know if it's like not satisfying the lemon laws because they've had so many issues with the vehicles, but it's just issue after issue after issue. And financially, I don't know if Fisker can sustain all of this. And it's kind of crazy to see the downfall of this company because they do make pretty cool vehicles, but um, there's reliability issues, there's revenue issues, and so I wanted to get your point. Do you think there's hope for Fisker in this situation, or do you think they're out of luck and they are really just going down the drain and tanking? I'm curious to see what your thoughts are here.
I don't think there's any hope for them at this point.
Mm,
I think they have, uh, because they haven't managed their company very well in the back end, it's coming through into their products, and people are seeing that as they've had experience with these. And now we're in like this very digital age of like reviews going getting out into the public and everybody being able to see those. And that has had a direct effect on their reception for their products, also their reputation. And with everything that they've got going on, I don't think that they are going to survive this. I think they are just going to be another cautionary tale in a business class textbook type of a thing of what not to do. What are your
mm.
thoughts?
Yeah, I I I like to have the idea that there is hope, but I think I'm the realist in me agrees with you. I'm trying to come up with, justification, excuses, solutions, possible scenarios where there is hope. I'm like grasping, like I want Fisker to survive, but with the more issues they have and the instability in their deliverable from like a reliable and effective vehicle, it makes their investors very scared. Maybe not scared, but it makes their investors lose trust. And uh, I also don't think just like not even just the lawsuits, but their revenue model and their business model, it's changing because they have to discount the pricing of their vehicles. And so any kind of projected earnings, profitability, revenue, that's all shifted and changed because they have to adjust for this terrible reputation they've gotten. And now they have to slash prices. And now they either double, triple, quadruple the amount of time for ROI to happen. And on top of it, they're getting piled with additional lawsuits and problems and um, extra red tape that takes time and money, and then they have to pay for that as well. And so I don't know what type of I don't know how well they're selling right now. I assume it's not very good. I assume they're selling very badly. And as a result, I don't think they're going to be able to turn any kind of um, not even profitability. I just think they're going to be so far in the red that it's going to tank them,
Yeah.
right? I agree with you, but I think MBA programs are going to study Fisker in 5 years in their
Yeah,
textbooks.
for sure.
You know?
I mean, like the
Yeah.
problem is like in addition to everything that's going on, like this is a terrible time for EVs right now. Like every EV automaker in the US is significantly struggling. I mean, Tesla, who has
It's
been
yeah,
the leader in the US for EVs, I mean, they're struggling bad now. I mean, they're starting to cut down their prices. They've even I guess they've even resorted to advertising, which is something that they have been um, completely against since their inception. I was really surprised to actually start seeing ads pop up for Tesla. Usually they've just been through word of mouth, but I mean,
mhm,
I, it, people right now are just, I mean, there was this huge hype, but now that hype has completely died down and people are no longer purchasing these vehicles. I mean, Ford's had um, has pretty much slashed production on their EVs right now because they're
yeah,
losing money off of them, and
yeah,
so it's just a
yeah.
really terrible time to be an EV automaker right now.
Yeah, you're spot on. We're seeing across the board the Mustang Mach-E, the F-150, Rivian, Tesla, all cutting pricing, um, not selling very, very well, a little shaky, and not, like it's there's something to be said about the hype of EVs, right? There's a huge hype of EVs, and then there's been this slowdown, this cool down of the market of people wanting to buy EVs. And I don't know if it's just because people are seeing a little bit more clearly the pros and cons of EVs, or if people are just waiting for infrastructure to be better, or if people just have realized they prefer the reliability of gasoline and having the ability to gas up anytime, anywhere because gas stations are open 24/7. I don't know. And it's also instantaneous. Like if you forget to charge your EV one night and you need to go drive somewhere, you're like, freak, I gotta wait so long, like
Mhm.
so long, depending on what charger you have. But it's like, oh man, I forgot to charge. Whereas it's like, oh, well, I'll just go to the gas station really quick. All those factors, okay, and then pile on a not so good economy.
Yeah,
And that just freezes anyone's desire to really go out and buy a new EV after they've gotten multiple feedback from their friends of like, yeah, I really like my EV, but there's definitely cons to it that I don't like. And when people are a little bit more realistic about it and the economy is not so hot, there's going to be a slowdown, and we've seen a big slowdown in EV purchases. So you're right, it's a bad time for all EV manufacturers, but especially Fisker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, as you said, they make their product looks really good. I think visually their product looks good. And if they were to get rid of all of the quirks out of it and make a solid product, I think that would help them do a lot better. But to me, the looks doesn't outweigh a lot of the shortcomings that come with how the vehicle operates, how the tech inside the vehicle is. So
yeah, yeah. If you paint crap gold, it looks good on the outside because it's gold, but it's still crap. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And I'm not, I'm not, that's a little extreme. I'm not like saying Fisker vehicles are crap. I'm just saying like, you get it.
yeah,
Anyway, you get it. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I'm really I don't know what happens with all the vehicles. Let's say they do go bankrupt. What are they doing with the vehicles? That's what I want to know. Because um, you know,
yeah. I
my thought
think
is like, oh, they're gonna like auction them off or something,
yeah,
you
I
know?
think they would have to auction them off what their existing inventory is, and then somebody buys it, and then there's no support for your vehicle after that. So, I mean, yeah, I might buy it if it was like $1,000
Yeah, yeah.
with the knowledge that
Insanely
there's
cheap.
yeah, with the knowledge there's no support for it. I'd be okay with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, same,
But
same. But we'll see what happens.
yeah, we'll see. All right. Another one that I found. So Anchor has they announced their new Solix whole home battery backup solution, and now we are seeing these products come into the hands of consumers and reviewers. And reception for these new whole home battery options by Anchor have been extremely positive. Um, they are it's a pretty minimalist type of battery. It's only 5.9 inches thick and attaches to your wall like a Tesla Powerwall. So there's finally some good competition against the Tesla Powerwall. It's got good power delivery, um, as well as capacity for these. And now now looking at it and seeing how people have utilized them in their home, um, with these, one of the benefits are is that you can attach it to your existing solar. You don't necessarily have to have a specific type of solar inverter for this to work. It's fairly universal from what I have seen, and seems like it has a great alternative solution where, in my experience, whole home battery backups have been on the more expensive side. These seem to be a bit more reasonable. As far as the pricing for the battery, installation will vary depending on where you are and who you can utilize to install this. But this seems like a great solution to um, combat the rise of electricity prices and also the infamous net metering that multiple states have implemented. So I think this is something that's really good. I'm glad that there is another competitor here in the whole home battery backup market. What are your thoughts on Anchor developing something like this? Do you think this is a good thing, or do you think that it's a little off from what Anchor's usual product offerings are?
Yeah, I think this is actually kind of down their alley. I'm not surprised that they got into this, and I'm actually really happy they are getting into this, because then it'll allow for some competition in the market. And I feel as though Anchor has a pretty good reputation. They already do a good amount of job, or like a good job with their portable solar packs and their batteries and like backup batteries that are portable, and also like just your regular home technology, accessories for your phones, chargers,
Their
portable
chargers
chargers
are
for your phone,
amazing.
whatever it might be. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've had a few other products and I've been really happy with them. And so I'm actually very excited. This is much larger scale for them, but I think there's a lot of money to be earned here. This gets me excited for me as a homeowner because then maybe one day I could be completely off grid and I don't have to worry about dealing with my local electrical grid and I don't have to worry about the infrastructure there or any kind of potential issues there. I can solely deal with my own solar and have my own batteries and then cycle the electricity that's in those batteries. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so I'm really happy to see what this will look like. It doesn't seem like they have pricing yet. Yeah, they haven't published pricing, but it says you can contact their sales teams if you're interested in buying. And so maybe that's something to look at. I do like how it's very adaptable to outside environments and how quickly it can change from uh, being on your local electrical grid, switching over to the backup
Hmm.
batteries. It's like 20 milliseconds.
Yeah, which
That's
is
pretty
awesome.
crazy.
Um,
Yeah.
like
Um,
I've had
the details
experience.
around like, oh, have you?
Yeah, I've had experience with like yeah, I guess a natural gas generator. And while those are cool, because I mean, like they're extremely reliable, just the switch over time, you can still feel it. Like once the electricity kicks off, you've got to wait for that to power up and start feeding electricity into the home. And so, like having the ability for like a 20 millisecond switch over time, I know people when they've tested it have said that lights don't even flicker with how
Yeah.
fast the changeover is on this, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's really cool. And I don't know. I don't know the details of like what kind of power I'd need or the output per millisecond. I don't know that those details, but I'm sure if as I get more interested in it, I can identify what kind of kit I would need and how much I would need, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so that I'm really excited for this. That's my opinion, but I don't know. You tell me. Do you feel like this is a do you think this is a good thing for the market? Do you think it's unnecessary? Do you think it'll just be like all hype and no one will really pick it up?
I think this is going to be, I think this is huge. I'm super excited for this. I mean, when looking at solutions for my own home, Tesla Powerwall has been kind of what I've been more gravitating toward, um, mostly just because of the how it looks, how well it integrates with um, the inverters that I already have, and everything. And since I have a Tesla car, it seems a little bit more cohesive anyway to go with that. But like with local installers in the area, the amount of power walls that I would need for our home, it's just more expensive than I want to put into my house right now. And so having the ability to have something else that's very comparable to this that seems to be at a cheaper price point, and offers the same type of functionality and features, is really compelling to me. Um, and now like looking into how the market has shifted and seen solar and battery backups for home appraisals, um, it seems like the market is now starting to pick up on these and actually value solar and battery backup. So now these are starting to become more of an investment into your home rather than just an expense or a luxury.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this because it's a thought that I was thinking about as you were talking because you did like a comparison. You said you've been leaning towards the Tesla home batteries, and you said that they're very pricey. Um, in regards to people purchasing, price point sometimes is a blockade for people going through with a purchase price, Anchor usually does a pretty good job of being competitive with their pricing. And what I mean by that is they're fairly reasonable, right? They're
Mhm.
not over the top expensive, but they're also not ridiculously cheap because they're quality product.
Mhm.
Do you think that there are other reasons? Do you think that there are other reasons why people just would think this is a really cool idea, but not go through with the purchase besides price point? And I'll give you some ideas that are in my head. One, I don't know if people from a realistic perspective actually think there's a need for this if they aren't experiencing blackouts, right?
Mhm.
And number two, how like is there just hype around doomsday preparation and this is part of it? Or do you think this is going to be competitive pricing enough to where it can compete with like a backup generator, like a gas generator, like you were talking about? You know what I mean?
Um, yeah, I don't think that this is going to be price competitive enough to compete with a natural gas generator. Um,
I agree. Okay.
Relatively speaking, those are extremely cheap
Yeah.
um, compared to a battery backup. I think when we were looking at the options, um, a a generator was like 10% of the purchase price of a battery backup system.
Hmm.
So significantly cheaper. Um, and with this, I think people that are going to be looking at this are people who are um, already have solar or are thinking about getting solar and are kind of more on the bleeding edge of technology and wanting to have a sustainable um, home as opposed to people that are just um, I think people that are like researching and really looking into this will be more willing to buy it rather than somebody going for an impulse buy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a fair point. Because I'm interested in this because I do like the idea of just self-reliance, right? And I don't really think of it as uh doomsday preparation. I mean, that's a benefit, don't get me wrong. Um, being prepared. But I also like the idea of I don't have to if I don't need to, I don't have to worry about being connected to the grid. You know,
Yeah.
I'm on my own when it comes to electricity. I mean, there's other aspects where I am connected to, I'm not completely off grid. You are connected to the grid with like sewage and water and whatnot, but
Yeah.
electricity is a big aspect where if I can control it on my own, that's great, right?
Yeah. And for me, because right now I just have solar on our home. We got in at a point where since we just installed it last year, the amount that our electrical utility company buys back the electricity is about 25% of what we have to pay for it.
Hmm.
So it's terrible. So as of right now, having solar on our home, um, I will not see the return on our investment probably in my lifetime
Wow.
for that. And so having the battery backup will allow me to at least keep that electricity that we're generating from our solar so that we can use that and not have to pull anything from the grid, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 1-to-1, right?
Yeah, so at least
Um,
that way having the battery backup would make our solar purchase worth it.
yeah. I have to look at mine and see what that looks like on my side because we have solar as well. And um,
And I think you because of the time that you got yours, you have a significantly better rate. Because I know my father,
yeah.
what he has a really good rate that he gets back from
Hmm.
the utility company because he's had solar since solar was even invented. I Not quite that long, but he's had it for I think over 10 years.
Oh
Um,
wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
I have to check my rate. I don't know what it is. and that's just how naive I am with it. But I should look into that for sure. But I've
Yeah.
enjoyed like my solar or my electric bill is significantly lower. And unfortunately, I have my home's smaller, grid, and so it wasn't as expensive as needed, so we paid it off, and so um, it's just nice having that. But I do wonder, like, what is the? I should calculate what's the ROI on that to see if it's actually worth it.
Yeah, because I mean, I think w right now our the amount of solar that we have, and we have two electric vehicles that are very power hungry. And um, so like our electric usage is higher than the typical household in Utah. And our solar, we easily double the amount that we pull. But
Hmm.
um, I we still pay like $80 a month for electricity. It's,
Wow, that's frustrating because of the rate.
yeah,
Hmm. That's really annoying, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Our utility company here in Utah is really annoying. I'm not a fan. They are the worst human being.
Yeah. We won't name drop them, but living in the Rocky Mountain really sucks.
Yes. thought these mountains were thought these were going to be a little rockier.
What does he say? Yeah. What does he say? Like, yeah, John
Thought the
Denver's full of
Rocky
crap.
Mountains were yeah, John Denver's full of crap.
Something like that.
Uh, great
For those
movie.
who don't get that, for those who don't get that reference, you need to watch Dumb and Dumber.
Yes. You need to at least once. It's hilarious. Uh, but yeah, cool things for Anchor. I requested a consultation with them, so I'll let you all know how that goes once we get some more info.
Right on. Right on. Keep me updated.
All
Keep us
right,
updated, Ethan.
deal. All right, what do you have for us?
Okay, I want to talk about Google. I want to talk about Google in this antitrust case because I still haven't really wrapped my head around it, but I think it's a really interesting aspect to Google and their control on the market and what's currently happening with this situation of whether or not they're breaking antitrust laws. And so if you don't know already, Google is currently in a legal battle where they have such a dominant control on website search engine traffic, especially with Apple, um, that it's become a concern of whether or not they are overstepping their competitive boundaries and breaking antitrust laws. Um, I don't have too much background on it, but we've talked about this also, Ethan,
Mhm.
because we talked about how potentially in the past Google was going to lose their top spot as Apple's main browser, um, or like main search engine on their browser. And Google pays Apple more than $1 billion a month, according to the US government. Um, and that was back in 2021. In 2022, they paid as much as $20 billion just for the privilege to be Apple's primary search engine. Okay. That information came out this week from this antitrust lawsuit against Google. And it's in its closing stages. It's been going on this past year. There was some progression back in the fall, but it's picked back up. And essentially, the Justice Department is going after Google's search engine dominance. Okay. And they're trying to persuade this federal judge, whose last name is Meta, by the way. It's a weird turn of, yeah, weird coincidence there.
Yes.
They're trying to persuade this federal judge that Google is illegally monopolizing the online search engine industry. And they're doing it through like paying a ton of money to Apple to be their primary search engine. And their argument is saying, like, hey, if any other search engine tried to come into the market and get any kind of market share, they wouldn't be able to because they can't pay these prices that Google's paying Apple and other suppliers or partners, we'll say partners, to be their primary search engine. And so it's really interesting because I I don't like the idea that just because Google has grown so big, they get punished. But at the same time, I do see the side of they are able to pay these ridiculous amounts of money in order to maintain their position as top dog. I'll give you Google's side as well to give you context. Google's perspective is, hey, we are top dog from like a search engine. We're number one. We're number one not because we pay this money. We're number one just because we're a better product. People know Google. They rely on Google. They trust our brand, and they just use Google because they like using Google. And so their argument is like the money has nothing to do with it. That's just like our agreement with Apple. We don't pay that money because like we feel like that's needed. We're top dog because we're just better. We're just good, right? And then the Justice Department is like, okay, well, if that's the case, then why do you have to pay so much money? Like why are you paying so much money then if that was the case? And so it's just really interesting to see this back and forth. And I personally am having a hard time wrapping my head around like what's right and what's wrong. And um, the closing argument, I guess, is like if it takes billions of dollars for someone or another company to dislodge Google as the default search engine, um, the argument is like, wouldn't the folks who wrote the Sherman Act be concerned about that? And um, the judge, Meta, said, I can't conceive a world in which some other competitor, particularly a new competitor, could do that. Microsoft couldn't do it. And so just saying like even a big tech company like Microsoft would have trouble competing with Google in that aspect, um, really puts into perspective just how dominant Google is. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Ethan, because like I said, I still don't know what's right and what's wrong, what should or shouldn't happen. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but I do think it's a really interesting case of a company who has obeyed competitive laws and antitrust laws, has grown so big that they're able to pay large sums of money and essentially bully themselves. Maybe not bully, but reward their partners handsomely to make them their preferred search engine, which has a huge market impact.
Mhm.
Do you think, are you leaning one way or the other? Do you have any additional insight? What do you
Ooh,
think here? Do you think
ooh,
Google should be punished for this?
I got a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I love getting your thoughts on this because you do have a law background. And so uh, for a peasant like myself, please educate me.
Uh,
Educate me and the others listening.
so one thing that I want to drop before I get into that, just to noodle with your brain and everybody else's. So allegedly, Google is paying $20 million a year for this agreement, or $20 billion a year for this agreement. That means that Google receives more in ad revenue from searches from iPhone users per year than $20 billion.
Yeah, that's wild. That's a really good point. They wouldn't be investing that money if they weren't getting it out.
Yeah. So they're getting well more than $20 billion per year just because of that, just to be the
That
default browser.
that is crazy. That is
So
that is actually crazy.
yeah. Um, I'm going to be a little bit devil's advocate on this because I think Google has gotten um, so big that um, it doesn't matter that they're doing this because nobody else would be able to compete with it. And so, because of that, I think it's okay that
Hmm.
they are doing this. Because if you think of it like Google is become it's become a verb and um, in the vernacular of searching for things. I mean, rather than saying I'm going to search it, people will say I'm going to Google it. Um, so that kind of brings you to um, a sense of how big Google has gotten when people start to use the trademark as a verb. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, with that, it's not even at the risk of being diluted because people still don't think of just searching it. I mean, when somebody says Google it, they know that you're going to go on Google's website and Google it. So I think that because it's gotten so big, and that even the argument that Microsoft couldn't do it, I I think it's okay because they're just so far beyond the competition that um, it it doesn't make sense to allow another to prevent Google from doing this. Um, Essentially, it's their money. I think they should be able to do with it how they want. They're not trying to siphon out the competition. There's just no other competition for Google. They've gotten to this point because they've built up their product so well. They've gotten a lot of goodwill from the world based on what they've developed over the however long they've been doing this since the dawn of the internet, essentially. And because of that, I think saying that this violates antitrust law is punishing them for how well they have built their business.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing this to um, get rid of the competition. I think it's they've done it so well that nobody can even come close to competing. Because yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
true. Microsoft and Bing, they couldn't do this. I mean, yes, Microsoft could probably pay for that. They could afford to pay 20 billion a year for that, but Bing, as their product doesn't generate doesn't generate that much money in order to justify that type of agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up actually a really good point because I think the nature and the spirit, let's go like spirit of the law for the antitrust laws is when you're really trying to bully yourself into position and eliminate competition. But I don't think that's what Google's doing here. I think they just know like we are here by ourselves racing at a professional level. Like I'm thinking like we're Usain Bolt of search engines, right? Like we're top dog. Like why do I need to allow a high school varsity track runner to come join the race? Like no, like if they're good enough they can be on our level. Sure, that's fine, but we're not pushing anyone out. We're just here playing the game. And I think the amount of money that they're spending, I think it's smart from Apple. Apple's like, hey, you're getting, let's just, I don't know if this is the right number, but let's just say, hey, you're getting $60 billion, right? So we're going to charge you $20 billion for that right to be the number one search engine. And Google's like, okay, yeah, yeah, we'll pay that. Yeah, we'll pay that. I think you make a really good point that like at the spirit of the law of antitrust, they really aren't overstepping. At least I don't think they're overstepping. It doesn't seem like it because there's no one else there competing with them, right? They're they're kind of racing by themselves. And let's be real. Like you made a really good point. Anyone that goes on their phone and searches something in the search bar on their Safari, you're expecting Google results. If I get Bing results or Yahoo results, I'm not happy.
Yeah, I'm infuriated.
Yeah. I'm like, what the freak is this? I don't want this. I want Google results, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think you make a valid point there. I'm going to shift really quick, just a side branch from that conversation. I do find it very interesting that social media platforms like TikTok are being used at a very high rate for search engine
Yes.
purposes. That is interesting to me. And I'm
Mhm.
really curious to see what the future holds there. Um, Instagram, their search engine in the app is absolute garbage, hot garbage. But TikTok, I feel like, is really good. And so that's a whole different discussion. But I do think it's worth mentioning, like there are potential competitors. They're just not quite at the level yet.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with you. I think Google is losing market share in search engine because I don't think that Google search has innovated enough to what people expect it to innovate to.
mhm,
Not saying that it's not great. I think it's really good. It's still my go-to search engine,
yep.
but I do find that it isn't as precise as I've wanted it to be, and I think they need to, if they want to continue to be this market leader, they need to continue to innovate
Mm.
their search engine to make it better. Because yeah, I agree with you. TikTok's search is surprisingly good for what it is, for the platform that it's in. I am always surprised by how well TikTok's search functionality is.
Yeah, and I also think maybe the form of content that people want to digest is changing. Google provides you with a certain type of content for you to digest. A website, an article, a YouTube video, which is normally longer format.
Mhm.
TikTok provides you with peer created content that is easily digestible and quickly digested, right? Versus uh, long articles with maybe professional language that you have to do a little bit more work to digest and to understand. Most people in this world, they just want quick and easy. They
Y
want the fast food version of consumable content. And Google, I don't think has innovated in that aspect.
Right.
TikTok is where a lot of people are saying, I can just search up what this is and like get a 30-second summary of that history or of that item or of that news uh, current event, right? Whatever it is. So it's really interesting to see the trends, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how Google adapts to that.
Yeah. Now, if we see like a tender offer from Google to buy TikTok, you know,
That
that I think that could be antitrust, anti-competitive um type of behavior there.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is TikTok's on the market now.
Yep.
I mean technically they have to be.
Yes.
They'll probably push back on that most likely, but we'll cover that in our podcast as it arises, as
Yes.
it comes to play. So,
Yeah. And so, I think I I don't think Google's being anti-competitive here. Um, I think more blame should be placed on Apple for charging so dang much to have that. And this wouldn't be because we know the reason that dollar amount is there is because of Apple. That was their you this is your pay to play type of thing. So if anything,
yeah.
Apple is being anti-competitive in this.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are the reason for this. We should be
Yeah.
blaming Apple.
Yeah, come on, Apple. How could you? How could you charge so much money to make so much money? Come on,
Exactly.
Apple. Be fair.
So, oh, but I think this is great. I'm glad you brought this up. A lot of things, it brings up a lot of things for us to think about. So, we want to hear from each of you. Yeah, let us know what you think about this.
Hmm,
Is Google being anti-competitive here, or are they just the best of the best of the best, sir?
best of the best of the best, sir. Ethan, you tell me what's that? What's that reference? I didn't get that one.
That is from Men in Black.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
I didn't get that. Dang it, I missed that.
Yeah, and they said, "We're looking for the best of the best of the best, sir."
I was like, that's got to be a line from a movie that Ethan's quoting. Dang, I missed that reference. Well, that's. I've got a couple Men in Black references that I always usually pull up that no one really gets. The scene where the bug takes over the guy, like the farmer's body. I'm going off on a tangent right now. I know we want to close, but the scene where the bug takes over the farmer's body, he goes into like the farmer's wife, and he's like, water, sugar, water, you
Sugar.
know? And he always asks, he kept asking for more. He's like, more, more. I always say more. I don't always, but I often will say more. Like if I want, anything, more sauce or whatever, I'll say it like in the voice from the bug, and no one gets it. I think I've only had like one or two people catch it in my life, but I say it quite often. I'm like, more, more. Anyway, so I'm mad at myself for not catching that Men in Black reference.
Nice. Well, I'm sure there will be many more. So I think it's
Yeah.
like I think it's an anniversary year for Men in Black now.
Oh, what?
I think, but
What? I
maybe
have to watch it
maybe
then.
yeah. 1997, so not quite
Coming up.
coming up, but great movie nonetheless.
Yep.
Well, like all great movies, they must come to an end, and same as with our podcast. So we want to thank all of our listeners and viewers for sticking with us. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't, that other button seems to work all right too. Make sure you send it to somebody you dislike. I think they could use this. They could use this video. As always, ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling button so you never miss out any content as it's posted on the channel. Until next time, stay classy and have a great evening.
Peace.